Hello, and welcome back to Owens Bay. I don't think we've seen this view for quite some time. In today's episode, I'm going to be finishing off the university I started in the last episode and building out the university town adjacent to it. I also have a new road detailing technique I've been working on, which I'm really excited to show off. And if I had to describe it in one word, I'd say it's stunning. My name is Gives, and let's get started. Okay, so what I'm going to start with here is we're going to basically finish off the university I started in the last episode, and that is the medical psychology departments on the other side of the rail tracks here. First, we're going to get rid of all these trees so we can see what we're working on. And do a few minor alterations to the landscape. The medical department sits up on a bit of a hill, so I want to show that off. And we're going to be building this pedestrian walkway around it. Now, I figured it needed a bit of modernization. This building's quite old, so we're going to add a few buildings that indicated an expansion to the medical department over the years. We're going to be using the disease center here, and I think that's a prop version of a Chinese police station. And I forget which one this is. I think it's Academy building, if I'm not mistaken. A building this old, like if we're thinking in terms of medicine, a building this old, it's pretty hard to upgrade them to a modern medical facility, so it's probably easier just to add on. And I'm using different types of buildings here to indicate the additions being added at different points of time. This is from one of the high schools, I think. And a little bit of recolor. Make them look a little brighter. You know, we're dealing with some of these buildings are pretty, the architecture is kind of brutalist, so we'll do what we can here. Connected to the university is going to be a small residential neighborhood. We can imagine this as the homes of the faculty, the dean, maybe university societies of some sort. I'm not being too specific about that part. And because it's so hilly around here, we're going to be using some of Harbor Master J's stairs here to kind of connect some of the more difficult areas. And a pedestrian walkway over the road and train from one part of the university to the next. going to embed some small offices inside this prop building here just to give it a bit of function. I'm imagining this building down here to be sort of like a university pub. And I'm using a static building, one of the motels, and we're going to splice into it a functioning commercial building. I'm imagining the houses in this neighborhood to be pretty expensive. Now, unfortunately, the way these paths interact with the main pedestrian walkway, pedestrians are going to cut through the stairs on their way up. There's not really a lot I could do with it. I tried several things to try to correct it. Essentially, how the invisible path connects to the main pedestrian way, it connects to the center. And so I think there's some shots here showing how the pedestrians are clipping through everything. I spent quite a while trying to figure out how to fix that, and in the end I just couldn't figure out a way to do it, so I'm just gonna have to live with it for the moment. I'm sure in the future there'll be better techniques to deal with this. Now I'm going to be playing around with some of Gaga XM's new terrain surfaces here, and we're going to be mixing them in with a whole bunch of other things. Here I'm mixing them with Sully's riverbed textures. This is the dirt texture over the riverbed, and yeah, it blends them quite nicely. It's quite surprising how well Gaga XM's surfaces mix with others. The combinations are essentially at this point endless, I think. I didn't really like this path at all, so I'm going to switch it out for an actual pedestrian walkway. This makes much more sense. And this looks a little more grand than that tiny little path. I would imagine the university would require a fairly dense tree barrier between itself and the rail tracks just to cut down on the noise. And the area just immediately surrounding the university would probably be parkland. Going to be using some of the new grass surfaces here. I didn't realize it at the time, but for the base I'm using a green stain, which is actually interacting with the grass surfaces, so it's significantly altering the look of them. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of like diminishing a bit of the impact of them, just a little bit, I think. Nice subtle change though in the surface colors, something that we desperately needed for grass. One of the viewers had the suggestion that the university needed like a security department or police department or something like that. And that makes a lot of sense. It is a fairly large university. What I'm going to be doing in here is, it's not going to be like a functioning police department. So we're just going to make a little campus security department here, and we're going to recolor some of the police cars in what I'm guessing now are the campus colors to indicate that they are part of the university and not part of the general police force. Here I'm going to be playing around with a few of the new dirt surfaces, and I'm going to be mixing them in with a few stains as well, just to blend everything together. Like I'm saying, the number of techniques now we have for detailing ground and other surfaces is quite staggering, I think. Okay, now for the town. The town was all just a placeholder until I got around, wanted to come back to work on it, which we're going to do now. So all of it's going to go. I don't really want any of it. I wasn't even sure if I wanted the road layout. It's not conventional by any means, so it makes things a little more difficult. But in the end, I'm going to keep the roads, but everything else is going to go. For the town, I'm going to be leaning heavily on the northeast asset pack here. The buildings, I think, are the most suitable. The way I view the northeast pack is, I know it's meant to be for northeast United States or northeast coast of North America. I kind of view them more as buildings from a specific period of time, most likely from the 1920s, 1930s. And that's how I'm going to be treating them here. Before the university, this town would probably be pretty much a very, very tiny place. It still is a fairly small community. It's not very large, but obviously it owes its entire existence to the university. I'm also going to be using a few of the buildings from the Southwest pack as well. Now, to deal with my unconventional road layout here, because it's not a standard grid, at least not in the downtown core, a good way to deal with this, because trying to line the buildings up to the roads, it's not going to look very good. So rather than lining the buildings to the road, what I'm going to be doing is aligning the buildings to each other. So they're going to be square in relationship to each other. Not necessarily to the road. In order to do that, I just use Move It to shuffle them around, pull them away from the road a little bit, and yeah, just line them up to each other. Now, if you have like an actual 90-degree intersection, like I do on the left there, you can line your first buildings up to it and then align all the other buildings to those. It looks a little better. And that's the first pedestrian I've seen using this walkway. I'm also going to be scattering in a few office buildings throughout the town. We can imagine these being associated with the university in some way. And to deal with some of the more awkward changes in terrain height here, we're going to use some pathways and some key walls. This town doesn't have very many parking lots, so what I'm going to do to compensate for this is I'm going to be squeezing parking in wherever I can, behind the buildings and all these little awkward sections of intersections and street crossings and stuff. I'm just going to, yeah, wherever I can find places to put it, I'm going to put it. Also, another issue with this particular town is we have a railroad line dividing the north and south sections of the city. And I only have, I think, maybe 3 road connections across the rail line. So we're going to add some pedestrian crossings as well. I'm going to be using these net lanes to cover up the vanilla train surface, which I've never liked it. I always thought it looked so artificial. These look so much better. The only issue with these is the hard edge on them, and a little later in the episode I'm going to try a few techniques to try to disguise that a little bit. I'm going to be using surfaces basically to tie everything together. Also, pretty much everything in the downtown core, it's all going to be either concrete, pavement, or tiled surfaces. there's not really much to say about what I'm working on right now. It's pretty straightforward. It's just connecting everything together, so it all feels like it's part of the same thing. Here I'm using it's the extension for the German Grand Police Station. Not police station, sorry, the train station. This is just a prop version of it. This is a really nice looking building all by itself. And we're going to imagine it as some historic building in town. I'm not exactly sure which building. It seems a little too small for like a city hall, so I'm not sure what this is exactly. But that's, how it is with a lot of towns when you're in them. There are a lot of buildings where you don't necessarily know exactly what they're for or what their function is or what their history is, but they exist. Here I'm using some of the grass surfaces without the green stain, so you get a better look at them. And you can see how they actually interact with the terrain surfaces. Now the map terrain grass textures, each variety of map texture will have a different effect here. So I'm using, I forget which one I'm using here, but this won't look the same as the vanilla one, and it won't look the same as like any of the others. So every map surface texture will have a different effect with this, which is really quite great actually. And I thought this pedestrian crossing here might be a bit unsafe, so I'm going to include some of these railroad crossing. And I love the way they open up when I put them down. That's so cool. At this moment, the university town does not have a name, and I don't really have any idea what I want to call it. So if anybody out there has any name suggestions, please let me know. I'm all ears. This is just a prop in the back here, just some little business tucked away in the back here. And initially I plopped down or a whole bunch of buildings, and you just like look at them for a while and you realize, they probably look better if you rearrange them or reorient them. So that's what I kind of do. I spend a lot of time just looking at the area I'm building, just thinking about it, its layout and stuff. When you look at it long enough, you start to realize, wait a minute, this makes more sense facing this direction than it does here. And so, yeah, I just spend some time shuffling things around, trying to fill in all the little awkward gaps and stuff with buildings and parking lots and little parks and stuff. Now, I'm just going to mention the roads a little later in the episode, but you might notice right now the roads look a little different. City Planner Plays had the excellent tip of using the road wear adjuster mod to invert the light and dark wear textures. And so this is with the white completely turned off, but the dark completely turned all the way up. I have to say, just this by itself looks so much better. It feels more correct. We're going to be doing a few other things to it, which is just going to propel it into a whole nother universe. Here I'm using a prop version of, it's one of the garages from one of the fire stations. What I'm going to be attempting to do here is we're using some of Broman's, I think they're Broman's surfaces here. These are the gravel one, the gravel surface to start. Then one of Gaga's XM's new pebble or gravel surfaces on top of it. And what we get is a much nicer blending of the edge. It's not perfect. If you look really closely, you can still see the edge, and that's basically, there's a bit of a mismatch in color and textures of the surfaces, and that's why you can still see it. But if you don't look too closely, it certainly looks a lot better than the hard edge that we have here. Okay, so on top of the road surface that we currently have, what I'm going to be doing is adding on top of it Broman's stain surface. This is the light stain base, and as soon as I do that, we get a road that looks like this. And already just this by itself is like, this is amazing looking. I think it actually, it has a whole bunch of variety to it. There's variations in the surface. It's not that flat, dead gray surface we have. This just by itself is already amazing looking. Now on top of that, now this is without that stain surface. This is XM's gravel pebble surface here. I'm just going to put it on top. And that, that's pretty cool. That looks pretty good. But watch what happens when we also add on the light stain base on top of that as well. So now we're in a whole other dimension of road detailing, I think. When we finish it off and we do it to both sides. The only thing to keep in mind, the road markings don't interact with it, so they will sit on top of everything you do here. So that's something to consider. And that's what we get. And for, you know, a older road, but not like, you know, completely trashed with potholes and stuff, that looks great. But we can now start adding things like Sully's road patches, potholes, all the little tar lines. You can push this as far as you want. The Real Vision decals also will work with this, although some of them are dominant, so they sit on this top, so you have to remember that. Now these tar lines look a little shiny right here. That's because of the angle of the light, but if we just zoom around to the other side, that just looks so crazy. We can mix and match all the surfaces, like all the new Gaga XM's new surfaces, they all work with this, and the effects you can get are just absolutely crazy. Like that alone, that's like night and day. Now here I just added some examples of things. I'm just playing around here. We got wet surfaces, we got Sully's stained surfaces, his tire marks, we got leaves, we got cracks. This is like an alley with just the edges completely obliterated. So you want some old country road, you can now do it. It's quite something. I mean, just look at these things. And because we have so many surfaces, the combinations are, there's probably more combinations here than anybody's ever going to be able to figure out. Look at the leaf decals on this now. This is just like, this is what I expected from City Skylines 2. This is why I like this game, is because it's not, I know like the current state of it is obviously improving, but you know, I'm more forward thinking in this, and just look at the surfaces here. Just look what we can do now. This is game changing, I think, for detailing. Now there are some issues. Not everything works. These road patches don't work. Also, the road surfaces that we have available don't work either, which is unfortunate. Hopefully that gets fixed at some point. Now for a final step here, I'm going to be replacing the residential neighborhoods. I'm just switching out buildings. We're going to be using primarily the Southwest pack. We're also going to be throwing in a few UK buildings and a few Japanese ones, and a few Southwest and Northeast row homes as well. And already that looks much better than what was there. Some of these row homes have to go though. Those older ones are a bit out of place. And once again, like I was saying, we don't have a lot of connections between the north and south sections of the town. So right here, I'm going to do a little pedestrian underpass. And the rest of it is just finishing up the detailing. And essentially it's the same detailing I did earlier in the episode, so I'm not going to repeat it again here. The rest of the homes on the north end of town, put in the tree detailing, things you've seen me do many times already. Now the north section of town was a little less complete, so here I'm going to be adding some low-income housing along the road here. I also thought the north end of town needed its own little like commercial hub. So we're just going to use these cross streets here for that focal point. And it's just a small collection of some commercial buildings. And the rest of it I'm going to do off camera. Unfortunately, this whole episode ran way too long, and so I have to kind of like edit out a bit of it. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode. Once again, if you stuck around to the very end here, thank you so much. I really do appreciate people who watch the entire video. It means a lot. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.